Hey y'all, hi, oh my goodness. Hi. I have been gone for a long time. I actually just filmed a trying new makeup chit chat, get ready with me, in which I applied this makeup look and kind of updated you on how the past month of my life has gone. So if you want to know more about that stuff, then just stay tuned for that video. It'll probably post soon. Or if you want to know what I'm wearing on my face. Today, I'm going to get right into it because it's new makeup hot takes. I am trying to come back with a bang. So I am going to make this introduction short because there's so much to talk about. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm glad you're here to hear me talk about new makeup. In these videos, I talk about what's new to the market, but kind of with an eye of discernment, right? I don't want to promote overspending. I don't want to buy too much stuff. I do sometimes buy things for review. So sometimes with these videos, I'm trying to gauge my audience, like get a sense of what you would want to see me review. But for the most part, it's a dry, somewhat impartial, and I would say skeptical reaction to what is going on in the frenzy of new beauty right now. So if you enjoy this and you're new, I hope you'll subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Here, my friends, is the tea. We are serving organized fish today. I have looked at what's new and I missed a lot because I've been gone. I haven't been able to film for a long time and I haven't filmed a new makeup releases in a long time. So there was so much makeup that's released since the last time we talked about this. I went through it and I just picked the things that I felt like were worth my time to talk about. I mean, there are some things that are interesting that I just don't feel like I have much to add to the conversation about those things, so I didn't include those. The things that I did feel piqued something in me, my interest, my ire, my opinions, I pulled them all and then I kind of organized them, okay? So notably, I think since I last filmed a video like this, a ton of complexion products have released. It just feels like the Trend Mood feed, which is Trend Mood 1 is an Instagram account that posts about new beauty, and that's what I'm referencing. Feels like it's overwhelmed by skin tints, foundations, concealers, more than usual. And at the same time, that's what is capturing my imagination for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm starting to really understand what I need in a base product or just that that's where my tastes lie right now in makeup. I feel really excited about the potential for good base products and I'm really enjoying using good base products right now. For whatever reason, I feel like commenting on every single complexion product that has released in the past month. So I'm going to do that first and I'm going to try to be snappy, zoom through them. Then I'll talk about exciting, dramatically exciting new color cosmetics because there have been some drops with a capital D. And then we'll talk about some beauty news at the end. And here's the thing. I have my preferences, which will emerge as I go through these, but I'm also going to try to comment on what I might be interested in trying if I didn't have such specific and unusual needs. I mean, unusual according to the beauty industry when it comes to shade. Because for me with complexion, the first thing I'm looking at when I look at a release is are they going to have anything even remotely close to my skin tone, which is very pale, desaturated, neutral olive. Many of these aren't. So I look at it and I'm like, it just has to be a no. But I'll try also to comment on whether I would be intrigued enough by the formula to consider reviewing it or buying it if they happened to have a shade for me or if I didn't have a skin tone that is so rarely catered to in the makeup world. Release number 1, the iconic London Super Smoother Blurring Skin Tint. So skin tints don't tend to be my favorite either. This one is 0 for 2. It's a skin tint, which doesn't help me that much because I tend to need heavy duty coverage in the parts of my face where I want to cover, like blemishes, scars, redness. And it also looks like the neutral fair. I don't know, looking at the models, it does say blurred satin matte second skin. I feel like this might be the iconic London answer to the Fenty skin tint because they are using a lot of the same buzzwords. And I tried that product and I know that for a lot of people that's a holy grail. It just didn't work well for me. This kind of thing that's trying to be a matte, satin matte, but a tint at the same time tends not to work for me. And the shade range, it looks like the palest shades, cool fair and neutral fair and warm fair. They don't look very fair at all to me. So this one isn't really really making me sit up and take notice. I feel like it's getting lost in the sea of everything else like it that is currently being released. For example, the Summer Fridays Sheer Skin Tint, pretty much the same thing, right? Like exactly the same thing, but the branding of the Summer Fridays product, I'm sorry, it's just a lot fresher, a lot more of the moment. It's also saying it's lightweight coverage with a natural finish. It really truly is like the Summer Fridays answer to the Fenty Skin Tint. But also, hasn't Summer Fridays not yet released makeup? This is like their first makeup, so that's kind of interesting. I'll follow their future career of this product with a little bit of interest. I don't know if I will be the one to test it. It's kind of hard to tell just looking at the trend mood announcement, what the measurable difference is between this and the iconic London one, right? The claims are all seemingly the same. However, this one just feels much more promising to me. Maybe too because they don't have like a picture of the shade, the actual shade range up, so I can't really see how light the lightest shade is. There is a model in the photography here who has pretty pale skin. I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna sit back and see what happens on this one, okay? Let me know if you know more than I know. Okay, here is something that intrigues me. Yet another, of course, complexion release that intrigues me because I'm looking at the lineup and there is one shade that is standing out, the palest shade, as looking quite desaturated. So even though, oh no, this isn't a skin tint either. It says long-lasting medium coverage with a satin natural finish. This is the RMS foundation. RMS, I think that one of the reasons I'm curious about this is that RMS aesthetically and like vibe-wise has always seemed like a brand that I would get along really well with. But most of their products are made with a lot of coconut oil in them and they stay really balmy. So many people have told me that I would like their complexion product, their existing complexion product, maybe because the lightest shade is kind of neutral and desaturated. But the formulas just don't work. And this is a serious departure for them in terms of formula. So I'm like looking at it and thinking, oh, maybe finally RMS has made something that I could get along with. I feel like I would need to swatch it in store unless y'all are like really interested in this. If a ton of you are like, please review the RMS foundation, maybe I'll get it for self-sponsored review, but it's a little bit of a shot in the dark for me because I'm looking at the bottle, the shade that they've chosen to color the plastic in the bottle of the lightest shade with all of these lined up. And I'm like, yeah, that actually looks like my skin. It almost looks a little bit green. But whether that's accurate, whether the picture's accurate, whether the bottle's accurate to the color of the foundation, whether the screen is accurate, whether the trend mood post is color accurate, it's anybody's guess, right? What I'll say is that RMS Beauty is interesting to me. A medium coverage foundation that is skincare infused and trying to be skin-like, hydrating, softening, natural finish. That's more my speed than like a satin matte skin tint. And I just think the photography is pretty. You know, it's sort of making me sit up and take notice. I'm like curious to see where this brand is going and if they'll continue to depart from their like coconut oil mixed with pigment in a glass jar past the work of their past. The Dr. Jart BB cream, I don't know. I just feel, you know, it's only 4 shades. I want to want it. I want to be excited by it because I love the idea of a BB cream. I really like Dr. Jart as a brand, but the lightest shade is supposed to cover a pretty wide spectrum of skin tones, right? From like very fair to sort of medium fair. I'm at the very fairest and the most neutral end of that. So it's just likely to be too dark for me no matter what. If I fit better into what they're offering in terms of shade, I might try this. This one might be at the top of my list. Okay, here's one that's a little bit, this one has me a little bit more worked up. Lady Gaga Triclone Skin Tech Foundation. So a Haus Labs foundation. This is going in the total opposite direction of pretty much everything we've looked at so far. Everything we've looked at so far has been like a smaller shade range, but you know, has quite a light shade and quite a dark shade. And so it's like flexible in between and hopefully you can find something that will work for you. This is like 50 shades. They're like, we've got it for you. No matter what color you are, we've got a match for you, right? And I guess it's probably full coverage because of that. And I had a pretty good experience when I reviewed Haus Labs. I was impressed by the formulas, basically. I was skeptical, and then pretty much every product except for that gross tasting lip oil won me over because it was so elegantly formulated. And I was just, I don't know, they just felt high end and it was exciting and it went pretty well. Especially the bronzer I really loved. However, ever, my friends. When I scroll across to the lightest end of this shade range, here we have, they must be 4 color correctors at the end, right? There's like a pink, a yellow, a peach, and a white. So I think that they're saying that if you have pale skin, you have to get one of the foundations that's on the light end and then this white foundation and mix them together. But all of the foundations on the light end, they just look really highly saturated. Like the pigments look really pink, really peach, really yellow. And if I were to mix any of those with a white base, I would just get a very pale but very vibrantly colored in terms of like the saturation, the amount of yellow or the amount of pink foundation, and it wouldn't work for me. There also isn't a green. Like I feel like if they had a green mix in, I might really be fascinated by this. And you know, it's a little bit hard to tell because of the glass bottles, but all of the shades, not just the lightest ones, all of them look really, really saturated in undertone. Like it looks like all of these shades have really, really strong undertones and that none of them are neutral. Mixing them with a white base isn't going to help that. You can't make a shade that isn't neutral more neutral by putting white in it, right? You have to balance out the actual undertones. And then mixing it with a pink or a peach or a yellow undertone really isn't going to help that. We need green to balance out these like pink and peach tones that it seems like are in all of these foundations from the lightest to the darkest. I'm just judging based on the pictures. If the pictures are accurate, I worry that this will be one of those shade ranges that is really broad in terms of how many different bottles there are, but that a lot of people, like a lot of people actually won't be able to find a match in. Total first impressions again. I could be completely disproven because this is just the impressions of my eyes from looking at it. Those were my first thoughts. That was my hot take. And this is New Makeup Hot Takes after all. Hourglass has released a foundation, an Hourglass traditional, like full coverage liquid foundation in a pump bottle. It's already seeming like a different kind of makeup vibe than what I tend to like. So already probably a no. Then looking at the shades, they've got the lightest shade is Fairest Cool. So the fairest shade is cool toned. And then the first neutral shade is like 5 shades in. So they don't have anything neutral on the fairest end of the spectrum. It just, you know, it seems extremely unlikely that I would be able to find something that would work for me. But even if they did have a shade that would work, this seems like a little bit more of a traditional like full coverage beauty guru foundation, you know? I mean, it says buildable medium coverage. I don't know. Why do I think this? Why do I feel this? Is the advertising? Is it my history with the brand? Is it I'm like making these claims, having these reactions that don't necessarily align with what the post is telling me? It's just how I feel. But isn't that kind of legit? I mean, isn't that what New Makeup Hot Takes is about? Maybe if you parse the claims, this is actually not that different from the RMS foundation in terms of what they say they're going to do. But I'm looking at the RMS one like, maybe you want to try it. And I'm looking at this one like, no, I don't know. I don't care what it says. I don't care what it looks like. It probably wouldn't work for me. I'm just telling you how I feel, okay? Maybe it's just because it doesn't feel new. Like this Hourglass release feels like something Hourglass, literally Hourglass, could have released 6 years ago. The same. Like it does. If you were like, oh, here's an old Instagram post from 6 years ago of an Hourglass release, I would look at it and I would be like, I don't really remember that. But I wouldn't question you that was something that happened, you know? Anyway, moving on. This is something that I am really, really interested in. It's interesting to see the difference, right? The Patrick Ta foundation. So it's a cream foundation in like a compact, which that's similar to like the Balm foundation style that I'm really into. I get along really well with this style of foundation. And it comes with the translucent finishing powder in the compact with it. I just feel like this is fresh. This is exciting. There is a chance that the fairest shades won't work for me, but they look like they're at least trying to. There are 4 fair shades and one of them is fair neutral. This is something I would totally order for a self-sponsored review, just like hoping that the shade would work because I'm that curious about what Patrick Ta has done with this format and with complexion. This is a creamy, buildable, medium coverage cream foundation that moves with the skin. Yes, without dulling the complexion, but it's not claiming to be like really shiny. Love that. I mean, who knows? We'll see. One never knows, does one? We'll see how it actually ends up working. But all signs point to this being the kind of thing that I would like to try and review. And if I didn't have a YouTube channel, if I wasn't out here getting things to review, the kind of thing that I would really look forward to swatching in store to see what the formula feels like and see if there's a shade that works for me. There's this sort of confusing post about the r.e.m. Beauty Concealer, the Ariana Grande concealer. It looks really liquidy, which does kind of intrigue me, but it's in a pot. And there are 60 shades, which does kind of intrigue me. And I peered closely at all of the pictures and I peeped, and some of the shades, most of them seem really saturated. When you look at sort of the light medium end of the shade range, these pots of peach product that it looks like the Becca under eye corrector, right? They all look like the Becca under eye corrector. Among them scattered, there are a couple that look like they might be a little bit less saturated. We'll only know when they launch and we can like look at them in real life. But unless like 10 of you DM me and are like, I've seen it and the very palest shade is extremely neutral and extremely olive and looks kind of gray and you should try it. Unless that happens, I probably won't wade into these waters because I don't know Ariana Grande from, I don't know, what did Julia say I should say? I don't know from Ariana Grande. I don't know Ariana Grande from Ariana Grande. Okay, but something about the new Charlotte Tilbury release has kind of captured my attention. I feel like it's been a long time since Charlotte Tilbury released something that gave me that old Charlotte Tilbury feeling, where I was just like, oh, this is probably the most exquisite makeup for a princess that I kind of used to feel. Whenever she released anything, I used to just think, oh, this is probably going to give me like a new face and a new life, you know? The scales have kind of fallen from my eyes with Charlotte Tilbury. I just feel like it's been the same thing over and over. It's like Pillow Talk releasing Pillow Talk. It's just like only Pillow Talk powder, Pillow Talk highlighter, Pillow Talk concealer, Pillow Talk all over your body. I feel like it sort of cheapened it over the years for me. Like it just seems like a little bit of the magic has gone out of the Charlotte Tilbury name for me. It's something about the fact that this is concealer and that it's like medium buildable and everyone's all excited, and the fact that I'm kind of interested in complexion right now has made me sit up and take notice. A little bit hard to tell from this post if the fairest shade is neutral enough and desaturated enough, but I'd be curious to find out. Maybe not to the tune of like buying it on the internet, but maybe to the tune of trying to swatch it in a Nordy's or something. I just remember how much I loved that Beauty Light Spotlight wand long ago, like before it went viral on TikTok. I was using it up. I was panning one of those. So I just feel like she knows complexion. You know, I don't like the lipstick formulas from Charlotte Tilbury, but she does know complexion. The By Terry Opulent Serum Foundation, really unworthy of even a mention because the shade range is so abysmal. I'm just skipping it. And that's it, actually. That's the end of the complexion stuff. So it's the Patrick Ta for the win, right? Like that's the one that I feel the most compelled to review. Let me know if you think that you want me to do that. And I'm very curious to know if the photography on the RMS one is in any way accurate and what people are going to think of that foundation. But most of it's either like too light of coverage for me to actually think that it would work for me, or the shade ranges seem like those shade ranges that are designed to look impressively broad, but the undertones are really aggressive. Therefore, like, don't really include people who are olive at any depth. So now we're moving into color cosmetics releases of note. I'm going to give you my hot takes. Briefly, Rose Inc. has released more blush shades. And at first I was like, really? Because I really like the Rose Inc. blush formula. And my only complaint when I first reviewed Rose Inc. was that I felt the shade range was uninspired. There weren't enough neutrals and there weren't enough desaturated colors. It was all just like these pinks and orangey shades, right? Orangey nudes. So they expanded the shade range, but they also look like these kind of orangey rose colors. They look the same as the colors that exist. They just don't look that different from the colors that already exist in the range. I want to see an old gum shade from Rose Inc. Have you all seen this picture of these upcoming Gucci blushes? I mean, are there only these three colors? Because that seems like it would be tragic. Like a pale bubblegum pink, a pale peachy bubblegum pink, and a rose. Is there going to be a brown? Is there going to be an old gum shade? Because I love the packaging of this. I love a little gold, I love a little star, okay? I love a little star as a way of making something feel fancy. I love the color. I love these compacts. I just keep looking at this picture and I keep thinking to myself, how many shades are there going to be and what are the other colors going to look like? I mean, it's just a powder blush. And I have been wearing powder stuff on my cheeks, but I've just been wearing my same Kevyn Aucoin Neo bronzer, which I absolutely love, right? But here's what I'm saying. If Gucci releases a shade like this in this blush, I'll be hard pressed not to buy it. They get me every time. I mean, they don't get me every time. They get me every once in a while, Gucci. And they're not getting me with the other thing they released. Let's skip ahead and talk about it. The palette. So a lot of you want to know what I think of this palette because I have the other Gucci palette, the original, and I lusted after it because it was so beautifully designed. I love the aesthetic, obviously. And Joe gave it to me as a gift and we did a full review of it. So I'll link my review of the first Gucci palette down below. So if you want to know what I think of this formula, what the packaging's like in person, it's a really thorough up-close review. If you're curious about this product, you should watch that review because it's probably the same formula and, you know, the packaging is probably the same quality and everything. So all I have to respond to is a shade range. And part of the reason that I was so into that original Gucci palette release is that I felt as though the color story was really, what did I say shade range? I meant the colors, the shades, the colors of eyeshadows, right? So in the original palette, there was just something about the way the colors spoke to each other and still is. I really like that palette. I often have it out on my vanity and I use it quite a lot. I like the eyeshadows. They're really great for kind of soft one and done looks or just two shadow looks. They're not super intense. They don't really hold their own with like a very structured paint by number, intense, like built up kind of thing, but they wash and blend into each other in a really lovely watercolory way, and the finishes are really beautiful. My favorites of those ones that I have are the neutral, kind of brownish taupe. There's like a burgundy taupe brown, there's a more brown, taupe brown, and they aren't totally matte, right? They have like a little bit of sheen. Those are beautiful for just wearing all over the lid. And those are the ones that I tend to use the most. They kind of remind me of what I think of Tom Ford quads as probably being like to use, you know? I don't see colors like that in this palette. There is one in the upper left-hand corner that kind of looks like that in terms of its texture. It's just much lighter, much more peach, so it wouldn't give me that grungy eye. And then there's the purple, the darker purple in the bottom row that looks like it could work like that, but it's less neutral than the ones from the other palette that I really like. And all of the others in this palette that have that slightly sheeny finish are like bright colors. And then the lovely neutrals are all matte. So it just doesn't seem like it would provide the same like daily use thing for me as the palette that I do have. It's more about pops of color. It's more about these like blues and purples and less about that kind of everyday grunge. I think some people are really going to like this, but blue and purple are quite contrasty and poppy on me and kind of go against my natural coloring and my natural color stories. I use them once in a while, but it's just more rare. Usually if I splash out with eye color, it's going to be like red or burgundy or maybe green, and less frequently blue and purple. It's exciting to see that Gucci has released another palette. There's nothing about this one that's making me feel like I want to collect them all. I prefer the one that I have, and I'm happy to stick with it. Let's talk about Natasha Denona, my dream eyeshadow palette. It is not my dream, except for the fact that it appears to have a black in it. It might just be a really, really dark purple, but I love to see that. I love a really dark inky color in an eyeshadow palette, and Natasha Denona doesn't usually do that, every once in a while, but not usually, so I like to see that. It also looks like it has a multi-chrome in it, which is great, but overall, it's like grape color. It's all these shades of grape and like that really, really pale gold that always looks pretty in a palette, but that I never end up using. It's a bunch of shades of really, really pale metallics and mattes and shades of grape. And there's just nothing about that makes me want it. That's like the opposite of what I want. So this is an easy pass for me. Also a pass, but a less easy pass is the mini bronze palette. The thing that makes me want to pass on it is just that it's leaning quite orange. Both the metallic and that center matte, that camel color, are leaning quite orange. The other three shades though, the really pale neutral and the really rich sienna colors, I love. I just don't need to buy this palette to have those. I have other eyeshadows in those colors. It seems like most looks with this would just be totally orange on me, like orange marmalade, kind of like shiny orange marmalade eyes. And it's just those really pretty mattes that are the kind of thing that I would like to use. Okay, here's a random release that I looked at and I was like, I want this. The what is it? Makeup by Mario MoistureGlow Plumping Lip Serum in Honey Glow. I just love a plumping lip serum. I love like a gloss stick. I love this color. And this is the kind of thing that I could see myself getting suckered into buying if I was like physically in a Sephora. Just like putting in my card at the last minute and being like, I'm doing it, you know what I mean? I'm not out here placing an order from Sephora to get this. If I am getting something for a self-sponsored review and it doesn't look like I'm gonna use my entire budget for next month, for example, maybe I'll add it in and randomly review it and let you know if it's all it's cracked up to be. Probably though, this is the kind of thing that I'll just forget about in a week or two, right? I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, oh my God, I love it so much. I really want it. And it's just, if I just don't buy it and I stop thinking about it, I'll forget about it and I'll use my other plumpers and glosses and chapsticks and stuff and I'll be fine. So those are all the color cosmetics of note, except that I flagged that the Merit just released a cream bronzer, which is exciting. And they sent it to me in PR and I'm wearing it. So if you want to know what I actually think about the actual Merit cream bronzer, make sure you watch the next video that's going to go up, which is the one in which I applied this makeup. The TLDR on this is that I really like the sheer buildable formula and it's creamy and it's effortless and it's great. And the lightest shade just is a little bit orange for me, but I think that the formula is promising. And there's only one little bit of makeup news that I felt like I should comment on, which is that Glossier is coming to Sephora. I never thought we'd see the day. It seems like Glossier has been on the struggle bus. Like I heard that they laid off a bunch of people. I think it seems like they've been going through a little bit of a restructuring, kind of dark night of the soul. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out what they're going to do. They launched Glossier Play and then it kind of failed and they had to discontinue all those products, including the Vanillic Lip, which is like the greatest thing that they ever made. And I just wonder, I mean, maybe you know more about what's going on behind the scenes, what it was that kept Glossier out of Sephora, kept them as a direct-to-consumer brand for so long, and what it is that's finally driving them to go into Sephora. There might be people who are more plugged in than I am and who actually have actual tea. I have nothing for you. All I have is my own kind of surprise. I mean, when I was scrolling through, I was like, whoa, it's just noteworthy, right? It's like a little bit of a shifting in some of the tectonic plates of the beauty industry as it has existed so far in like this decade. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes when Glossier gets into Sephora and what they'll do from there. I'll be following their future career with great interest, needless to say. But that's it for me today. I'm going to come back to the middle. That is it. Those are my hot takes, and I hope that you enjoyed them. I just feel like it was a lot of talking about complexion products and then a few kind of dramatic eyeshadow palette releases. I didn't comment on the Pat McGrath Moonlight Seduction palette because I think I talked about it in other hot takes, and Issa Maya as well, and I'm reviewing both of those. So stay tuned. I'm, of course, behind on videos, but those are two of the videos that are in the hopper, and they should be coming to my channel soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you for being here. I hope it was enjoyable to spend this time with me. I hope you'll subscribe if you feel like it. And I really hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.